and there's been a lot of complaining and a lot of voices lately. So the FMCSA issues a guidance, I think on Tuesday actually, and they give some information to help define the difference between a broker and a dispatch company. Today we're going to discuss those points that the FMCSA has given us. We're going to discuss the impact on the industry, and we're going to discuss whether the FMCSA has helped us and what some of the solutions in the industry would be. So hold on very tight. And also, you know that we're live. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, all sorts of places. So that means that you can pitch in and we'll try to look at your comments and participate. I have a great guest for you today, and I'll introduce you to him in just a minute. But now that we're talking about double brokering and cargo claims and hostage loads and drop loads and cargo theft, all of those problems have been rippling throughout the industry. I want to remind you guys that Carrier Assure is your solution. It is a blanket that goes right on top of your onboarding resources, and it helps you avoid double brokering, cargo claims, cargo theft. Go to carrierassure.com. You will see a promo code there for 30 days. Try it for 30 days. Check the score before you tender. Avoid the Fs, and you will see you won't have any more problems. It's that easy. All right, let's introduce you to the guest, which is Adam Wingfield. He's one of my very good friends, but he's also an industry expert. He's been on FreightWaves many times. He's been on my show many times. You'll see him all over LinkedIn. He is extremely knowledgeable about trucking. I'm very excited to have you here, Adam. Welcome to the show, and happy Freight Friday.
Happy Friday. How are you? Glad to be here.
Good. Where are you? You're always traveling. Where are you today?
I am in Charlotte, North Carolina.
All right. So that's home for you, right?
That is.
I always forget where home is for you. I know it's somewhere in the South, but I never know. I'm a New Yorker, so I never know which state. I just lump you in the South somewhere. And I'm like, I just know that he's always in Atlanta or one of the Carolinas. So Adam, I'm excited to have you here. You were the very first person that I wanted to have on the show to talk about this problem with us. But I think first, we need to talk about what exactly is a dispatch company, because there are a lot of shippers that watch the show, and there are a lot of brokers who are like, what is that? I don't know what a dispatch company is. What does that mean to me in this world?
So for me, and just to be very, very clear, a dispatch company typically gets a bad rep because it's associated with just the word dispatch. And a dispatch company within our environment does a lot more than just dispatch. A dispatch company, and a really good dispatch company, goes far and beyond the reach of just simply telling a truck to go from point A to point B. A dispatch company, if we're going to use that term today just for ease, a dispatch company to me is a carrier agent, is an agent that represents that carrier for the benefit of a freight transaction. Now, that freight transaction, of course, has to generate with a broker and end with the carrier, but your dispatcher is that intermediary in between. A lot of times, folks get, and especially folks, and I see it a lot on LinkedIn, Cassandra, and I see it a lot with people who just don't know what a dispatch company is there for. They just want to associate the word dispatch. And when you think about dispatch as a word itself it's just a direction. Hey, pick up here, deliver here, and that's it. So a dispatch company truly is that intermediary between that broker and that carrier to provide that carrier with not only the ability to book loads for that carrier, but a lot of times dispatchers, they're handling IFTA, they're handling compliance, they're doing things like ELD. They're really helping the carrier. So it's a lot of associated help that goes along with running a really good dispatch company, for a lack of a better term.
Does your company, Innovative Logistics Group, do they offer dispatch services or consulting services for dispatch companies? Like, how do you know so much about this?
Also, because, that's one of the services long ago, I remember it's probably about 4 or 5 years ago, before the word dispatch service really kind of came out. I remember one of our industry partners needed help with a couple of clients because they couldn't find freight. So we was like, yeah, sure, we'll help them find freight. And then, we got into the whole process of helping them find freight, and they were new to the business. So we're kind of coaching them along the way and doing all that stuff. And it became a service. It became a bona fide service between us and that particular carrier. And we were representing that carrier with integrity by ensuring that they did things the right way. We made sure that we picked up and delivered. We made sure we communicated, over communicated, provide signed BOLs on time, and really kind of stayed in there and maintained a great relationship with brokers. And even from that experience, just because we had the ability to deal with hundreds and hundreds and thousands of brokers, we made some great relationships all the way through the industry that way. So it's a win-win situation when it's done the right way.
When do you think it's not done the right way?
Oof, man, I see it done as a fly-by-night situation in a lot of different ways. I think that the thing that we know about the technology era is that if there's something that's legal, then there's a legal way to do it. And I think that within dispatching, I see the fact that you got dispatchers out here that are not in it for the right reasons. They're in it to obviously to benefit their own selves. I see sometimes there was some workarounds where they were able to get paid directly and not pay the carrier. There's a lot of bad rep when it comes down to a dispatcher, and there's some red flags that stand out to me. When you get these, I'll call them what it is. It's a fly-by-night dispatch service. There's a dispatcher that didn't even take the time to get a professional email, a professional website, didn't go get an LLC and things like that. But I think that because of the FMCSA's ruling, which I am a fan of, because of what that ruling does, it really separating the real from the fake right now.
Mm-hmm. It really does. I want to talk about that ruling really quick. We're not really quick. We're going to dive right into it. So first of all, for those of you who are like, what ruling? What's going on? So the FMCSA, John Gallagher with FreightWaves, by the way, if you don't follow him, he has amazing articles. Excellent writer. I follow him. So he produced a article about the FMCSA updating guidelines for brokers and for dispatch services, because there's a lot of confusion between when are you a dispatch company and when are you a broker. When you're a dispatch company, under the law, you are a bona fide agent if you're acting properly and you follow the definitions. But then there's a way to blend into when you become a broker, and which requires you to have broker authority, to have a bond, and that's about it. But there's a line between the two, and sometimes it gets blended and crossed, and it is very confusing. So what happened was the FMCSA has issued a guidance. Now, the guidance is not a ruling. Just want everybody to know that. It's not law. It's not anything that's like going to make a major impact. It's just guiding us on understanding when are you a dispatch company, when are you a broker, and when you become a broker, that's when you got to get your MC number and you got to go get a bond. So I want to talk a little bit about these factors. So the FMCSA has given us some factors to analyze whether a dispatch service needs broker authority, and such authority is needed if the dispatch service, and the first one they have here, is interacts or negotiates a shipment of freight directly with the shipper or a representative of the shipper. So I want to talk to Adam about that one first. So they're saying you need broker authority if they're going to analyze these 6 factors. None of them are black and white. So just because you do one doesn't mean you have to get broker authority. They're analyzing in a blend, case by cases, factual analysis, which doesn't fucking help anybody, by the way. It just confuses the shit out of everything. But Adam, do you think do dispatch services normally interact and negotiate the shipment of freight directly with a shipper?
So they don't, but the thing is where it becomes a little bit confusing is there's a lot of dispatch services out there that have boomed within the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit, and let me give you a little bit of history. When the pandemic hit, the whole work from home, hey, I can get into the trucking industry with a little bit of money, that created a boom of dispatchers hitting into the marketplace. And what happens when that happens is obviously it provides a little bit of competition. So you got dispatchers, different dispatching services competing for the same pool of carriers to be able to provide the service for them. So of course they're going to go and they're going to reach out and try to see some additional things that they can do a little bit differently to bring business within their own. So one of the things that you see is dispatch companies offering dedicated freight. because they're going out, they're soliciting shippers and saying, hey, I've got a pool of carriers, I've got, a carrier that's got 13 trucks, and we can provide you with some dedicated capacity. And that's where it got real foggy. But to your point, and one of the things that you stated that I really wanted to put a little reference behind is that, yeah, it is not necessarily a legal ruling, it is a guideline, but we all know that the court of public opinion is very important, particularly in this industry.
Yep.
And when you see the fact that, okay, when you go on these social media groups and seeing these posts and you see these owner operators that already are not big. There's a lot of people that ain't fan of dispatch services because dispatch services,
Yep.
like I said, they have a bad rep. They already are not fans of them. But now just by the FMCSA just opening the door and say, hey, listen, I'm watching you. Now all of a sudden that's going to make people just stand up a little bit, roll your shoulders back a little bit, and do business the right way. And if that what it takes, then I think that it's a step in the right direction. But there's absolutely times, there's absolutely opportunities out there where we've seen where dispatch companies reach out to shippers directly and solicit service.
Yeah, and it goes into another factor that they have listed here, which was accepts a shipment. So you would be a broker and you need broker authority. Here's another factor: accepts a shipment without a trucker carrier, then attempts to find a trucker carrier to move the shipment. So is that something that dispatchers normally do?
It's not normal, but I've seen it to where a dispatcher will get on a load board, book a load for an MC, right? I'm booking my load for MadGaines Trucking. I booked a load for MadGaines Trucking on a load that I've got posted that Innovative Logistics may have posted. I've got the rate con, I've got all the details on it. And now I'm going to go out and I'm going to look at some of the carriers I have and say, hey, listen, I've got this load. It picks up at this time. It weighs this much. It's going to pay this much. That's where your double brokering comes in from the dispatch side. So that's when it gets sticky.
Yeah, it does. And that's where I think a lot of people have become angry is I can't figure it out, actually. At first I thought a lot of people got angry because brokers and shippers would be confused whether they were talking to a carrier or a dispatcher. And then when you talk to the dispatch company, dispatch service, they could be representing multiple carriers, which is where the double brokering piece comes in that you mentioned. But now I'm wondering, I'm still trying to figure out what the big deal is. And when we talk about, hey, you're not a dispatch service, you're actually getting into being a broker if you interact or negotiate with the shipment directly with the shipper, or you have accepted a shipment without a carrier and then go try to find a carrier. In a way, those types of services feel like they should be natural for a dispatch service, like you're helping the carrier out. So it's like, this whole thing is kind of weird for me. But the next one they have here is again related to the other two that I mentioned, which is soliciting the open market of carriers for the purpose of transporting freight. I'm assuming right there they're talking about posting a shipment on a load board. Is that what you were thinking too?
100%. You're talking about posting shipping on a load board and saying, hey, I've got this load that's coming out of Laramie, Wyoming, yada, yada, yada. This is what it's paying. And I'll be honest with you, you see that all the time. You go on right. Facebook and you look at, you see it all the time. And it's one of those things where they do that. And okay, I'm going to be honest. One of the reasons why they do that is so they can solicit carriers to their dispatch service. You might be in an area, a tough market. It might be, a Florida market or Maine market or, Idaho market, and say, hey, I got this load, I've got this lane that's running, 3 times a week, yada, yada, yada. That's an opportunity for them to use that as a backdoor way of soliciting carriers. So they don't necessarily book that freight. They're just posting that freight, what they see. And that's where you see that happening on social media.
Huh. That's okay. Do you remember like Craigslist? Back in the day when people actually used Craigslist to find apartments and things like that, the real estate agents would do that as well. It was like, what was it, post and bait or something like that, where you'd be like, oh my God, this is such a great apartment. They'd be like, oh, sorry, this apartment's taken, but hey, why don't you be a real estate agent? I'm a customer of our real estate company. And like, they would try to show you other apartments and really piss us off. But that's interesting that they do that. This is like the wild, wild west of dispatch service. Wow. So for those of you who are just joining us, the FMCSA has issued guidance this week on the differences between a broker and a dispatch service. And here I have Adam Wingfield, who's an expert in this area and many other areas, by the way. So if you If you don't know Adam, you need to find him on LinkedIn right now and follow him. Because he puts out really great content and has an amazing business that I refer a lot of my carriers to. Adam, the other interesting pieces that the FMCSA has listed as factors to help determine if a dispatch service needs broker authority includes, this is the interesting one for me. I'm naive here. Accepts or takes compensation for a load from the broker or factoring company, or is involved in any part of the monetary transaction between any of those entities. That is interesting to me. I thought something completely different. So what is going on here?
So that is, honestly, I'll be honest with you, that was the one that when I saw that ruling, it just made me just like, I was like, wow, they actually put that on paper. So just transparently, so what happens is that you'll have, and let me give you a little bit of the game. So it's not a game, but give you a little bit of a backstory. So what happens is
it's a game, Adam. It's a game. Isn't everything a game?
So, it's okay. So dispatchers and factoring companies partner all the time. I think it's a great opportunity for factoring companies to be able to provide an additional service to their carriers, because factoring companies, the more their carriers can stay moving, the more carriers stay loaded, the better the factoring company is going to perform financially. So what happens is that they get into a network. So maybe I partner with MadGaines Factoring, right? So MadGaines Factoring, I'm a dispatcher with that has a relationship with MadGaines Factoring. And then I got this carrier, right? So what happens is typically the way you're supposed to do it, and the right way to do it is that when you book freight for a carrier, you're supposed to invoice and bill the carrier just like you did a service for the carrier regardless, right? Mm-hmm. So if I come cut your grass, I'm going to send you a bill for it, right? And you're going to pay me, So the thing that happens, and it got really popular at the very, very beginning of when this whole dispatch thing kind of went into place, because I'll never forget when I very first started doing it, there were a couple of factoring companies that what they do, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it ties you closer to the shipment, and that's when it gets messy. So what happens is that I tell the factoring company that, and the factoring company being MadGaines Factoring, hey, Innovative Logistics, one of my clients. I charge Innovative Logistics 10% of whatever the load is. If the load is $1,000, then I want $100 for the load. The factoring company, MadGaines Factoring, says, hey, you know what, Adam? No problem. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make it easy for you. We're going to actually take that out of what we pay the carrier. So instead of paying a carrier $1,000 on the load, we're going to pay the carrier $900 minus whatever their factoring fee is. We're going to pay them $900, and then we're going to direct deposit you $100. So that way you don't have to worry about a carrier that doesn't pay you on time, or you send an invoice to a carrier and the carrier just. So the factoring company will come in and they'll help you out a little bit, because especially in this industry. First of all, a dispatch company is providing a service without credit check. So, and at times, and think about this, Cassandra, if you got 10 trucks and you're running 10 trucks with Innovative Logistics Group, and we're grossing $6,000 a week, for instance, on 10 trucks, that's $60,000, right? And if I was charging 10%, I'm invoicing you $6,000 a week without checking your credit, without knowing anything from you from a background standpoint. So by a factoring company saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take the money out before we even pay them. So the money that we actually pay the actual carrier is going to be less the fees. And the fees are whatever the factoring company's percentage is. So whether it be 3% or whatever, and then minus the dispatch fee. But the problem with that is, so let me tell you where that gets messy, Cassandra. What happens is you have two types of factoring deals. You have recourse and you have non-recourse deals, right? So a non-recourse deal means basically if, you do a shipment on a broker and the broker ends up, down 30 days, I pay you right away, right? When I get the BOL loads done, I pay you. Here's your $5,000, Cassandra, on the load, right? But I go and I invoice the actual broker. If the broker, for some reason over the next 30 days, hey, guess what? I just went flat out of business. I don't have any more money. I'm going to take that $5,000 I paid you, Cassandra, and I need that back. So I'm going to take that out of your reserves. So now you're going to owe me $5,000. But what happens on a recourse deal when a dispatcher gets paid, right? Are you going to take it back? Are you going to take that percentage back from the dispatcher too? So that's where it gets a little messy. But the thing about it is, and when you tie that together, when the carrier is the last person, and to look at it from that perspective, when the carrier is the last person, when all of the money is getting pulled out before the carrier gets the final settlement, and then that dispatcher getting tendered that actual transaction compensation right after the actual shipment, does that directly tie you to the shipment as a broker of that shipment as well, as opposed to you just providing direct service to the carrier? So that's where I think it gets a little messy. That particular part of the ruling, again, that one kind of made me sit back in the seat. And I was like, wow, they did that?
Because that's the part. Well, first of all, I didn't know any of this happened. I just assumed exactly what you said. They get paid by the carrier. But if I were them, I would want to be paid. I would want to be paid. Like, I don't know if I would trust all these carriers to pay me. Yeah, I don't want to have the receivables. So it would make sense for me to work with the shipper, the broker, or the factoring company. The factoring company part blows my mind, because why would they make this arrangement with a dispatch service? That's the part that I'm like, wow. And I'm assuming it's because the dispatch service in return sends all their carriers to the factoring company. Exactly. And it's kind of an exchange.
Exactly. And if you think about it, the more I bring you business, the more you get on your factoring fees. And there's nothing wrong with it. This is a capital society. No. This is a relationship business. You know, I mean, if I scratch your back, you scratch mine. And the fact of the matter is that if you are going to say, hey, you know what, Adam, I'm going to make sure that you as a dispatcher stays liquid by making sure that we collect from this guy, so that way you're able to continue to dispatch him. And on top of that, anytime I've got new carriers as a factoring company that comes in, I'm going to refer them to you as my partner. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely fine. Wow. I think that it makes total sense. But I think where it kind of got messy is because now you're messing with the money. Now you're getting the money from the third party, and you're not getting the money from the actual carrier. So are you providing service to the carrier, or are you providing service to the 3PL? So that's where I think it gets a little bit messy. And that's why, in my opinion, that was put in that ruling.
Okay, this is weird to me. I understand if the dispatch service is engaging in getting money from a shipper or from a broker, and now they're really part of the transaction. But do we really qualify a factoring company as part of the transaction? Like, that part is weird to me. I don't know if I would qualify. It's like another service that's over there in the carrier's business.
It is another service, but it's buying the actual freight bills. So they have obviously they're going to have limited power of attorney. They're going to have the notice of assignment. So they have a little bit more legal, more legal bind in there, because they're able to actually take that bill of lading, which that bill of lading is between that shipper and the actual broker, right? So it's between the shipper, broker, and carrier. And they're able to take that and actually pay a carrier on behalf, on almost like a promissory note. Like, hey, this shipper is promising pay on his note, but you know what? I'm going to wait for that note to get paid to me. I'm going to take a little bit of money out of you. I'll wait to 30 days and I'm going to loan you. And that's what a recourse is almost like. I'm loaning you money on the benefit that the person's got good credit. When I say person, the shipper or the broker's got good credit, and they're going to pay me, because then I won't have to go back and take the money back from you. So that's the only messy part of it that really kind of stands out to me from a financials perspective. What happens? What happens when you get on a recourse deal and a dispatch is working on a recourse arrangement? But there's other components of this notice.
So there are, Adam has illuminated and Adam and I both have illuminated just like, I don't know, 20% of this whole thing that's been issued. We'll have to do another episode on this because we're almost out of time. Matthew Fink is one of my favorite people in the entire industry, and he has read my mind with what his comment is on LinkedIn. And it says, we have 1 minute. Why not just be a legitimate broker too? It seems to offer a layer of legitimacy. I mean, the lack of a bond and oversight may seem to invite fraud and deception, but I'm with him. Just go out and get damn broker authority and an MC number. What's the big deal, Adam?
No, I agree with that. And I think that, not just that, I think, one of the things that Innovative is pushing, and my company's pushing in first quarter next year is dispatch certification. Having a certification, some sort of level of certificate to show legitimacy, to show some sort of tie to doing business the right way. And now a broker authority, I think that's good to have, and I can agree with Matthew on that. But then we still got to teach the basics of doing business the right way with a lot of these dispatchers. So that's just not, the broker authority is not the end all be all. I think it's more education and certification there.
I couldn't agree more. I think also Carrier Sure, I hope next year is going to partner with Innovative Logistics on that initiative. I think it's brilliant. Thank you for joining us, and have a great Friday, everybody. Follow Adam on LinkedIn for his help and more advice.
Find load coverage 70% faster and save time on track and trace with bulk actions within TIE TMS.